Hello, kids. This is Mr. AG here, and it's been a minute since I've recorded any kind of videos or read alouds or anything like this, so bear with me. But what you're seeing here is a way to access books online, and I'm going to model it for you to access Cycle of Rice, Cycle of Life, which is a nonfiction book we're reading as part of our Sharing the Planet unit. So I'm in my Clever account here. I'm going to on the Access 360 link or the app here, type in our school. Notice that when I just type in center, our school shows up right here. You can click on it. You can do this too to access books wherever you are if you don't have books available to you. So the book that I'm looking for specifically is Cycle of Rice, Cycle of Life. That's the book I want to share with you today. So we'll open it up, and I have to check it out. So I'll click on the checkout button here, and I will read it now to you. And you can do that at home for your personal self-selected reading as well. I'm gonna just go ahead and allow it because I don't want anything to get in the way of my work here with you. And I'm in the online mode here. So as we're studying, a lot of our literature is nonfiction, and one of the features of nonfiction that we've studied before is that oftentimes instead of illustrations, there are actual photographs, and that's what you'll find in this book as well. So we'll see photographs. We'll see some other elements of nonfiction that are common to the genre. This is Cycle of Rice, a story of sustainable farming. Cycle of Life. So I think it's actually Cycle of Rice, Cycle of Life, a story of sustainable farming by Dan Reynolds. There we go. Cycle of Rice, Cycle of Life. Here's the foreword. A food staple for half the planet's population, rice is one of the most important crops on Earth. It is at the core of daily life and culture in many parts of the world. To the people living on the small Indonesian island of Bali, rice is life. All the cycles of life are coordinated with the cycles of rice farming, the water cycle and the growing cycle. The island's rich volcanic soil, warm climate, and abundant moisture will allow for one of the most productive rice harvests in the world. There is also another reason for the Balinese' success. When it comes to growing rice, they have developed one of the world's most efficient systems for water sharing, crop rotation, and the use of natural fertilizers and pest control. Traditional Balinese rice farming is a dynamic model of sustainable farming, a way to grow food while being conscious of the needs of other people and the well-being of the planet. A gift from the goddess, the cycle of water. High atop a mountain range on the island of Bali sits a glorious temple, Ulun Danu Batur. Open to the sky and the rains and the heavens above, it was built to honor Dewi Danu, a goddess of water. Like people everywhere, the Balinese know they cannot survive without water. It is essential for all life and sacred to their culture. Because of this, the Balinese have built temples such as Ulun Danu Batur to give thanks to Dewi Danu for blessing them with pure, life-giving water. Bali is surrounded by water, bordered by the Bali Sea to the north and the Indian Ocean to the south. It is one of more than 17,000 islands that make up the country of Indonesia in Southeast Asia. The salty seawater surrounding Bali cannot be used for farming, since crops require fresh water to grow. For fresh water, farmers must rely on rain that first falls on the island's highest peaks, volcanoes as tall as 10,000 feet that shape the backbone of Bali. Near volcanic mountains, such as Mount Batur, rain fills crater lakes that feed the island's 80 rivers. From the highest points on the island to the lowest, an ancient, elaborate water system flows down the hillsides, through the plains, and out to the ocean. Although Bali's lakes and rivers exist naturally, a human-made marvel of hydroengineering has harnessed these waters for more than 1,000 years. An interlocking network of tunneled waterways weaves its way through every bit of land on the island, providing residents with fresh water. The water system was built by hand in the 9th century using only what nature provided: earth, logs, and stone. Today, some structures have been replaced or expanded with cement and other modern materials, but much of the original framework remains. Weirs, or diversionary dams, change the natural flow of water so it runs in other directions. Tunnels, angling slightly downhill, and canals, human-made streams, transport water from high mountains to lower ground. Aqueducts carry water across busy travel routes and other obstacles. Finally, long irrigation ditches bring the water right into farmers' fields. Here we have the water temple system. So you see a little diagram here of the different temples. Built along this intricate water system like beads on a necklace is a linked network of temples where water ceremonies take place. The holiest of temples, Ulun Danu Batur, sits at the top of this chain above Crater Lake, Batur. Fanning out below Ulun Danu Batur are the Musketi temples. These large temples sit above entire farming regions. Weirs direct water from multiple rivers to form a region's communal water system. Below the Musketi temples are the Ulun Sui temples, which connect with a single weir, canal, or spring. The water from the Ulun Sui temples supplies many subaks, or groups of farms. There is also a separate temple for each subak, as well as a smaller temple for every individual farm. In this way, all points along this linked system of water sharing have their own corresponding water temples. The Jerogidi, or high priest, a most respected man, blesses drops of holy water gathered from the steamy vents near the summit of Batur volcano. This is the most sacred ceremony, taking place at Ulun Danu Batur. After adding other water to the sacred drops, the Jerogidi will distribute holy water to visitors who come to the temple seeking it. Visitors take the holy water back to their communities for local water ceremonies and celebrations, giving thanks to the water goddess. These rituals are all a part of Agama Tirtha, honoring the gift of water. Rituals performed at the water temples serve many purposes. Besides offering thanks and asking for plenty of water and good crops, these rituals connect people living in one watershed or area united by a common water source. Gathering together as a community reminds them that others depend on the water too. It is important that every farming family within each subak has enough fresh water to grow the rice they need to feed themselves. Since farmers must visit and place offerings at temples along each part of the waterway, the rituals also help to ensure proper supervision and maintenance of the entire water system. Water that began as rainfall on Batur volcano eventually winds its way down to the shore of the Indian Ocean and the Tanah Lot Temple. Here, freshwater streams enter salty ocean water. Looking beyond Tanah Lot to the vast horizon, it is possible to see great clouds formed by evaporating water blowing toward the mountains. The clouds will release the water, raining down on Batur volcano and Ulun Danu Batur temple, and again the water will flow throughout Bali and back out to the ocean. This perfect natural cycle of water is sacred to all Balinese people. It is honored daily through temple offerings and the spirit of a connected community sharing water to ensure a good life for all. And here we have what looks like a picture caption, like the Chinese yin and yang, Kaja Kelod, toward the mountains, toward the sea, is the Balinese concept of balance in nature, encompassing up and down, high and low, sacred and unholy. A time to grow. the cycle of rice. Parades of brightly dressed people carrying plates of luscious fruit and flower offerings on their heads follow priests in pure white sarongs as they walk to the temple for the planting celebration. This is the time, before each planting season, when representatives from the Subaks come together at the Maseti temples at the heads of their watersheds. For hundreds of years, these ritual gatherings have linked all the people in the watershed, uniting them to celebrate and share the natural gifts of their island home. Gatherings at the Maseti temples are beautiful and rich in cultural tradition, but they are also a time for business. New irrigation projects are approved, disputes are settled, and advice is given for construction and repairs to fields and the water system. Most importantly, the farmers who are representing their Subaks must work together to devise the best water sharing schedule for the hundreds of people on the numerous farms within their watershed. The water will flow downhill from Subak to Subak through canals with dividers to control the agreed upon flow. Made up of emerald green terraced fields, the Subaks are engineered like stair steps, creating flat spaces on the hillsides to pool the water for growing rice. Developing water schedules requires complicated planning and organization. Everyone's needs must be considered in order to maximize the rice yield and benefit the common good. If disputes arise, they are settled by temple priests. When the meetings are finished, Subak representatives send word to individual farming families within their watershed, telling them when they will be receiving water for their fields. As water flows through each Subak, it is shared among the individual farms. The first stage of rice growth demands the most water, and a farmer upstream will typically let the water flow from his fields to his neighbors 2 to 4 weeks after his own fields have been planted. On one farm, a boy named Putu and his family will soon receive the water in their fields. Putu and his sister Kadek take offerings to the rice goddess Dui Sri at the field temple. Meanwhile, their grandfather has been aerating the fields, loosening the soil so that air can get below the surface. This is done with plows pulled by water buffalo or by hand with rakes. When the water comes, it flows into the field, flooding it about 1 to 2 feet. For about 2 weeks prior to the flooding, rice seeds at the edge of the field have been sprouting into green shoots. They are now about 5 to 10 inches high and ready for grandfather to plant in the flooded field. Planting the shoots is precise work and must be done by hand. Long, narrow pathways of dirt and grass rise up out of the water, crisscrossing the newly planted rice fields. These pathways are repaired and rebuilt every planting season so that people can travel throughout the wet fields. The pathways also enable young people such as Putu and Kadek to catch the frogs, eels, and small fish that can be found in the water. As the rice grows taller and sprouts more stalks, more sweet kernels form on the tips of the plants. These kernels will ripen and harden to become rice. Putu and Kadek must ward off the birds and protect their crop. They make scarecrows by tying strings and rags onto long bamboo sticks and placing them around the field. 2 to 4 months into the growing cycle, the rice plants have matured, reaching shoulder height for Putu and Kadek, approximately 4 feet. After giving thanks to Dui Sri for this wonderful crop of rice, the children are ready to help with the harvest. With his traditional curved knife, Putu is swift at cutting through the thick bundles of stalks. Kadek strikes harvested stalks against the side of a basket. This knocks off the kernels of rice which are collected in the basket below. The rice kernels will then be tossed in large, round sieves to separate out any small pieces of stalk or other materials. Finally, the rice will be laid in the sun to dry thoroughly before it is packed into bags. And here's a picture caption in orange there. In Bali, there are 3 separate words for rice. Paddy, when it is in the field, baris, when it is dried, uncooked, nasi, when it is